Welcome to Geometry Unit 7, Similarity. Our first video is on skill number 48. I can write, simplify, and solve problems using proportions and ratios. We'll begin our notes on page 48A and title that Proportions, Ratios. So ratios and proportions are the basis for proportional reasoning, which is necessary in a variety of real-world situations. We'll get to those situations later on in the chapter, but for now we're just going to focus on what a ratio is and what a proportion is. A ratio compares two numbers by division. You might have 3 to 4, or you could write that as 3:4, or we're used to seeing it as a fraction, 3 to 4. And one possible example of this would be the ratio of slope. We rise 3 and we run 4. The ratio can go further, as we see in example 1, which states the ratio of the sides of a rectangle is 2 to 3 to 2 to 3, and the perimeter is 250 inches. Find the side lengths. Well, we know that the perimeter of a rectangle is the sum of the four sides, or length plus width plus length plus width. And since the ratio of our sides are 2 to 3, we can say that the perimeter is 2x plus 3x plus 2x plus 3x, because that maintains our ratio of 2 to 3 to 2 to 3. Since our perimeter is 250, we can say 250 is equal to that. Simplifying the right-hand side of the equation, we get 250 equals 10x, and then we divide by 10 to get x is equal to 25. Once we know that, we can go back and see that the length is 2 times x, and the width is 3 times x. At the end of the lesson, we'll take a look at another ratio problem involving angles in a triangle. As I said, one common use of ratio is the slope of the line, so rise to run or change in y to change in x. Continuing our notes on 48b, we discuss what a proportion is. A proportion is an equation stating that two ratios are equal. So now we have the ratio A to B is equal to the ratio of C to D. When you set up a proportion like this, you have what are called the extremes, A and D, and the means, which are B and C. And I put this off to the side in red. You won't be tested on those two vocab words, but they do show up possibly on the EOC and later on in further math courses. So we're just being introduced to those terms for the first time. Extremes and the means. When you have a proportion, you're actually able to apply what's called the cross products property to solve this. So if you have this proportion, then you can say AD equals BC, or the product of the extremes is equal to the product of the means. We see this most commonly is a problem where some students will refer to it as cross multiplication. For example, here in example 2, solve for x, and we know x to 10 is equal to 25 to 50. So if we apply the cross products property, we can get x times 50 is 50x is equal to 10 times 25, or 250. 50x equals 250. And if we divide both sides by 50, we get our final answer of x is equal to 5. Our last two examples are on page 48C. Example 3, solve for a. And we have a proportion here of a minus 5 to 24 is equal to 6 to a minus 5. And what we can do is use the cross products property. So a minus 5 times a minus 5 is equal to 24 times 6. And if we write that out, we can write the left-hand side equation as a minus 5 squared, and the right-hand side is 144. From there we can take the square root of both sides and we get a minus 5 is equal to plus and minus 12, and finally a is equal to 5 plus or minus 12, and we get that by adding 5 to both sides, which means either a is 5 plus 12, 17, or a is 5 minus 12, negative 7. Example 4 goes back to ratios, and it says the ratio of the angle measures in a triangle is 7 to 8 to 15. Find the angle measures. So we can set up the problem. We know the angles in a triangle add up to 180, so our ratio of 7 to 8 to 15, we can say 7x plus 8x plus 15x is equal to 180. If we simplify that problem down, we arrive at x being equal to 6. Angle 7x would be 7 times 6 is 42, and then the angle of 8x is just 8 times 6, which is 48, and the angle 15x is 15 times 6, which is 90 degrees. This particular example is a good problem to keep in mind because there is a problem very similar to this on the skill test. So the key ideas for skill 48 is ratio, and a ratio is a comparison of two numbers, for example a to b. We should also know the term proportions, and that's when you set one ratio equal to a second ratio. That's a proportion. And then finally we should know the cross product property, and the cross product property says if we have this proportion, then we can say that A times D is equal to B times C.